because it was before the common market. So you couldn't just go to work in Germany like you can now. You had to get a visa first, so you go over to the consulate in other side of by the Royal Albert Hall, over that way. It's still there, so you go there, you get your visa stamped in your passport. Having got that, then you could go off to Germany. So I ended up going in like New Year. So I went over there and worked in stores. Yeah. Okay, when we got there, when I got to Frankfurt Station, because that's where we're being based, got to Frankfurt Station, moment of complete panic. Never been out of England, except on holidays, natural holidays, 2 weeks. Yeah. Sat on the station thinking, Jesus, I don't speak German, what do I do now? What do I do now? And I thought, well, find a hotel somewhere to keep, that's probably a good idea. So I took the bag and found a hotel just outside Frankfurt Station. A couple of days later, after the New Year period, went off to the Hansa Alley where they had their personnel office, registered with them. They put me up in the youth hostel in Frankfurt for a while. Then I found digs. Then I stayed over there, but I worked in the stores in what the E.G. Farben building is. What used to be called E.G. Farben. The Americans took it over after the war, because E.G. Farben was one of the people that made the munitions for the war. So they'd taken it over, and in there was all kinds of services. There was what they called the spooks on one floor. Yeah, and you had what they call a paternoster, which was like a lift. It had no front on it. You stepped onto it. When you got to the floor you stepped off it. Yeah, it was because it was 1930s design, this building, and on one of those floors the spooks lived. So if you tried to get off there was a big gate with military police and everybody there. Yeah, so it was quiet. Before the common market started, there were very few English people around. Yeah, so I bumped into a few of others and we got together and whatever, and we'd lived on the economy, so we'd go out drinking and meeting people. Yeah, and you learn a bit of German, whatever. Yeah, and we talk about the foreigners coming over here. As soon as we entered the common market, Frankfurt was full of foreign English people doing exactly the same thing, living in their own areas, making up their own clubs. Yeah.
So there was a drastic change during that.
Oh yeah, there was a massive change. The builders, all English builders came over, they expanded, because it was a big building period over there as well. So as I say, it was just like everywhere else, these things just changed. But during that period, when I was over there, we got a bonus, me and a mate. So we went off to East Berlin. Yeah. So what you had to do, you had to have your passport. Frankfurt Station, there was an American train that went straight down this, whatever, down the railway line. Yeah. Didn't deviate because it wasn't allowed to. Just had to go from West Germany to Berlin. It couldn't go any other way. So you'd go along, there'd be American guards on the train. You get to the other end, the Russian guards would come on and check all your passports and whatever, and then you'll get into Berlin, which was like an armed camp in some ways. Yeah, because they had a big army base there, because they wanted to show that Berlin was still part of Western Europe. Or whatever. So we got over there, found a hotel, stayed about 4 or 5 days, and we went to East Germany. Yeah, and we went through a place called Friedrichstrasse. Yeah, and if you look at it now, I'm sure it bears nothing like it was then, but there was a whole area where it was just pockmarked buildings and empty. Yeah, and that was like the border, you know, the wall and the border and whatever. And then we thought, oh, I know what we do. We haven't been through Checkpoint Charlie. We'll go back through Checkpoint Charlie. Yeah, go through Checkpoint Charlie. My mate shows his passport quickly, walks on. Then the guy comes out, the commissar with a big red hat comes round. Well, not red hat, red band round it. Where are you going? Show my passport. No, 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 no. And I thought they were going to shoot us, because one of the guys got his gun and beckoned my friend back. Yeah, you can't come through here. You must go through the same way. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're thinking, how do we get out? What happens if we get stuck in East Germany? Because you know, you hear these stories. Yeah. So we legged it back to the station and got the last train. Yeah.
So you weren't allowed to cross on foot then? Like
no, because we came in through one checkpoint. It was, you had to go out through the same checkpoint. You couldn't come go through, come through Friedrichstrasse and go out through
They were all
checkpoint.
carrying guns at the checkpoint.
Oh yeah, of course. The Americans would carry guns the other side as well, because there used to be run-ins, and you had these problems with people coming across the border and things like that. So there was all that kind of business. So we did manage to get back, but when you got to the west, in the eastern part of it, it was all dull and drab and boring. When you got to the west, as soon as you crossed the border, there was lights and parties going on and bars open and things like that. And these went on to the early hours of the morning.
So it was a stark contrast between...
Oh yeah, absolute contrast. Yeah, the houses, when you just crossed over the border, still had the bullet marks in them. Yeah, they weren't pulled down or anything, and just left empty to make a big wide border so people wouldn't be able to cross. And it was things like that were quite amazing. But this contrast between the two places was huge. Yeah, and then I went back to West Germany, went back to work, and stayed working for the Americans for quite a long time. Another time, the other problem they had over there was RAF. Yeah, Bader-Meinhof group. You heard of those?
No.
No, they were a group of revolutionaries. I lived in this barracks, and one night there was a big police group down the middle of the road with submachine guns. Yeah, they automatically set up roadblocks every so often. Yeah, to see if they could catch these guys. But they're, in some ways, they were quite clever. Yeah, they would walk into a police station and rob it of all passports. You know, because everybody in Germany had to have a pass. Yeah, so if you moved from one street to the next street, you had to change it.
Oh.
Yeah, depending on if you were on a border of an area, so that you get re-register. Yeah, over there the health system was different as well. If you earned over so much money, then you could buy private health. Yeah, otherwise you were registered with the government health service. That meant you had to go, if you want to go to a doctor, you had to go and get like a note from them to say you go to a doctor. If the doctor came to you because you were too ill, then you'd have to do it afterwards. But you always had to get your money paid back that way. So that was slightly different. But this was one that threw you, was this idea of registration. Yeah, where you had to registration if you moved from one area to another and things like that.
Did you move around a lot?
No, I didn't really. I lived in a few places. I lived in Bonner-Mays for a while. I lived in Eschenheimer Landstrasse. I lived in a room, a bed sit over in... One time there was a bar called the Old Smugglers. I don't know if it's still there. But you go in there 4:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. I came around the corner one day, there's a big crowd. Yeah, and I thought, oh, I don't want to be involved in this. So I turned around and this German policeman came up with a gun in his hand, saying, halt, halt! And I thought, oh dear, stop. So I stopped. He went, just search me. I can't know, maybe it was something to do with the Bader-Meinhof, it could have been a robbery, but there was a big crowd there. So whether there'd been a shooting or whatever. I can't believe this policeman coming rushing around that corner with this gun. Wasn't my kind of idea of fun at all. But it was a lot like that, because in certain areas, and we used to, like the Old Smugglers, you know, I remember going in, sitting down minding my own business, and somebody said, do you want to take some cocaine? Rolled up, because this was the problem. This was another problem you had at that time. A lot of the Americans had just come back from Vietnam, and you know, and you used to go to the barracks, and they'd be bleary-eyed and mystified where they'd been smoking dope all day and stuff like that. There used to be a place in the middle of Frankfurt. You'd go down there, buy anything from LSD to amphetamines, anything you fancied. So at that time, drugs wasn't anything new. Drugs have always been around, but again, it was. I think the police just let them deal in this place, because if there was a problem, they knew where to go to collect them. Yeah, so they used to have their little weights and things like that. I only know because I used to go down with the Americans and watch them dive. They were the days.